my fellow comic book collectors. It's Alan, the comic collector geek, and this is the hottest comics of the week for the Golden Age. And the very first comic on the list, number 10 on the list, is a bit of an update. So last week I spoke about how a 3.5 CGC 3.5 Superman number 4 had sold for a record, just a massive record. It was just like crazy sale of $13,300. And people asked, oh, is this real? This can't be real. Because it was like 4 or 5 times the previous record. And I said, yeah, it was real. There was X number of bids. It was a legitimate sale. And there was a new sale though. This book, when there's a record sale like that, what always happens, and happens every time, is people say, oh, I have that book. And they dig it out and they put it up for auction. Well, that's what happened this week. The book came up again, but it wasn't a 3.5, it was a lower grade. It was a Superman number 4 in a 1.8. And you're probably wondering what's so significant about this book. Why is it selling again? Well, there's a bit of controversy about this book, and I'll get into that right now. This book, by CGC's label, is the second appearance of Lex Luthor. Well, that's the debate. It's a Hulk 180 versus Hulk 181 kind of debate. In Action Comics 23, we see Lex Luthor, according to CGC, for the first time. He has red hair. Okay, he later is bald in subsequent issues, but that book came out in February of 1943. Actually, February 23rd to be exact. Superman number 4, which also has Lex Luthor in it, came out in February 15th of 1940. So that's when they both hit the newsstand. So Superman 4 is actually the first appearance of Lex Luthor, and it's just denoted incorrectly by CGC. It's actually a week earlier than Action Comics 23. So Superman number 4 is actually the first appearance of Lex Luthor. And so people discovering that have added a little bit of hype to it. It's a major villain for Superman. And that's maybe the reason why there was that big sale last week. But how about this week? What happened with this 1.8 sale? Well, I'll get right into it. This was 1.8, and it sold for $1,790. Now, this is actually down. It actually had a previous record last year for $2,323.65. That was actually the previous record for this book. So this means that it is actually down. And this was a restored 1.8. So it's down from its previous record. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Oh, sorry, this is not a restored grade. It was actually a 1.8 blue label, but it's down from its previous sale. So it's down like about $500 basically from its previous record. So that means the hype isn't there for this book, even though there is some controversy about where Lex Luthor made his first appearance. It doesn't show in the prices. So that previous sale was a one-off, and it does happen. Now there's 202 copies on the census and 302 altogether, universal, and 302 altogether. The next book, number 9 on the list, so moving on forward, is Planet Comics number 58. Now I love this cover. This is a really great, a very iconic Planet Comics cover. This is a Fiction House book from 1949. It was actually homaged by Dave Stevens in Planet Comics number 1. And it's just considered to be a classic cover. Well, it had a pretty great book. Copy of this came up for market. It was a 8.5, and it sold for $3,299. That's it. It sold for, it was like a best offer, or best price for it, and there's 88 on the census that are universal and 90 altogether. Now, the previous record for this same book in an 8.5 was $2,928.81 back in September of 22. So this is up about $300, about 10% from the previous record. So not too bad for a pretty iconic book. Nice 10% return. So in half a year. So for the golden age, that's actually considered a fairly good growth. Usually you don't get like year over year return like that in the golden age. Things don't really spike up, but that was a pretty good return. That's why it's number 9 on the list. Now, number 8 on the list is Action Comics number 48. This is from May of 1942, and it's a World War II cover, and it's just a classic war cover because you got the Japanese plane, and it's a kamikaze, and it's like just about to come down and like blow up a ship or something, and Superman is punching it. Like he's punching it right in the propeller. It's just really great, iconic cover for World War II. And that's really why people go after this kind of book. There aren't that many really great Superman World War II covers, and this just happens to be a really good one. Now, this book had a big record. This is a big record for this one. It was in a 1.8, CGC 1.8, and it was sold for $1,799.99. Now that is a pretty big sale because the previous record for the same grade in a 2.0, because this is the first time it's sold in a 1.8, it sold in a 2.0, which is a higher grade, back in May of 22, so just last year, for $900. So this book almost actually sold for about twice what the previous higher grade had sold for. So a very big sale for this book. There are 62 copies on the census in Universal and 70 altogether. So it's a fairly scarce book, a rare book. Okay, next on the list, number 7 on the list is Green Hornet number 1. This is the Holyoke November of 1940 book. It is actually the first appearance of both Kato and the Green Hornet, and it's a classic painted cover. It's just a beautiful cover. Now, this book was a restored copy that actually came to market, and I like talking about restored books because I buy restored books. So I don't shy away from restored or universal. It's important to follow all the sales that happen in the market, and restored books are really interesting to watch because the question is, do they sell for as much, or do they go up like the blue labels do? And the answer will be in this very video, because this was restored 4.5 that came up, and it sold for a new record of $2,100. Now, the previous record for restored 4.5 was $1,995 in May of 22, so just last year. So that's a reasonable return, about another like 5 to 10% return. So not too bad. So it shows that restored copies can increase in value. So it's not such the fact that there is this purple label of death. So a lot of the books from the Golden Age are restored. In this book, there are 54 copies on the census, and of those 54 copies, 14 of them are restored and 40 are universal. So it is one of those books that does have a lot of restored copies. So it's a strong sale for a restored copy. Just a really great sale. Okay, number 6 on the list This book I really, really love, actually. This is Weird Tales of the Future #3 from August of 1952. This is just a classic cover. It is, you got the zombie coming through the ground. It is a Basil Wolverton cover, and it's just one that collectors go after because it's a classic horror cover. And so this book, this is a new record within grade. So it's like the first time it's actually sold in that grade. It was a 3.0 that sold, and it was for $2,496. The past record, because there was no previous record in a 3.0, the past record was a 3.5 that sold in May of 2020 for $1,700. So it's up almost 50% from the higher grade that sold a few years back. There was actually in April of 22, like last year, there was a 5.0, a 5.5 actually, that sold for $6,600. So this is a pretty valuable book. Yeah, and there's only 54 copies on the census, and of those 54, 48 are universal grade. So a great book, and just a classic cover, and I really love that book. I actually just bought this book recently in a low grade, but I didn't pay that much. But this was definitely a really great sale. As I said, up 50% from the previous high of a higher grade, so that's always a good sign. Okay, number 5 on the list is Submariner Comics #3. This is a timely 1941 comic. It's a Alex Schomburg comic cover. Just a really great cover. This is what makes this cover especially cool, is it's one where it's an assassination cover. So there's like there's the ship, and you got Winston Churchill, and he's christening the ship, and this is one where the Submariner is basically stopping an assassination attempt on Winston Churchill. Just a great wartime element to it, and just makes it one of those books that is very desirable, especially because it's an Alex Schomburg cover. Just so much going for it. So this book had a record sale, and it's really uncertain what the price was, and I'll get into that in a second, because it was a restored copy, and it was a 4.0, and it had a best offer on it. So it was, the listing price was $37.50, and I checked both GPA and Go Collect, and they didn't say what the accepted offer was, but probably above 3,000 would be my guess. I don't know. It doesn't say, but it was an accepted offer of $3,750 best offer. So we don't know what that best offer is. So, but the previous record for this book was $2,015 back in March of 22. So just last year, this book sold for $2,000, and we don't know what it sold for this year, but anything above 2,000 is a record. So I have a feeling it sold for more than that previous record. Now there's 40 copies on the census in universal grade, and 51 altogether. So about 11 restored copies on the census. Okay, just a great book though. Okay, next one on the list, number 4, is Kid Colt Outlaw #1 from 1948, and it's an Atlas Marvel comic. This is just a #1 issue of a classic Western character. Now this had a sale of in a 3.0 of $1,400, and that's a really good strong sale for this book, because the previous record for this book was $1,030, and that was back in 2018. So it's gone up 40% in that time. However, there was actually a sale that just happened a couple of years ago, back in 2021, in May of 2021, for $870. So this book actually had dropped a little bit during the pandemic and has now recovered and actually gone up about 40% from its previous record. So that's a really good showing for this book. It's a 3.0 for $1,400. There are 29 copies on the census and only 25 are universal grade. So fairly rare book. Next on the list, number 3 is USA Comics number 9. Now this is a really great book. This is from July of 1943. It's a timely comic with a Sid Shores cover, and it has everything. I mean, like just they put everything into this book. It has Nazis. It has this weird Nazi with like almost like a skull-like head. It has bondage, like Bucky's in bondage. It has Captain America jumping in. They're trying to use gas on him, and there's Bucky is, this weird creature guy is like gonna inject him with like a hypodermic needle. Like hypodermic needle covers is another thing that is a classic element that people seek in from the Golden Age. And the hypodermic needle is really cool because it has labeled on it paralyzing serum. So it's just like these little classic elements to it that really make it a really great cover. And they all have the Nazi armbands, and it's just really great, like a propaganda cover, wartime cover, and by a famous artist, Sid Shores. So just so many things going for this cover and this book that this was a pretty big sale. Even though it's not a high dollar amount sale, it isn't a low grade. It was a 0.5 grade. There was 2 pages missing from the book. And it sold for $877. Now, the previous record for 0.5 was back in October of 2017 for $525. So this is a fairly good increase, like about 40% increase in price. Actually, no, about 40-50% increase in price. So pretty good sale. This is a fairly rare book. There's only 41 copies on the census, and 35 of those are universal. So, low grade, but a strong sale. So the next book on our list, number 2 on the list, is Adventure Comics number 103. Now this is a pretty major key. There was a bunch of characters that were introduced in More Fun Comics. And what happened was, in Adventure Comics number 103, they moved those characters over into this book. So, and they continued on in this book. So DC basically moves Aquaman, Green Arrow, Johnny Quick, and Superboy into this comic. And it's the first time that we get Superboy kind of appearing on the cover in a consistent manner. And also, it's the first time that they use the small DC logo. So that's another little tidbit about this book. This book is from 1946. And it's just a great key for all those elements where these characters are now going to be in this title. So this was a record sale for a 3.0. And it was for $1,142.76. The previous record, and it was only last year in March, that this book had sold for $415. So this is almost a 300% increase in value. So that's a pretty big sale. And this book has only 66 copies on the census, and of those 66 copies, 56 of them are universal grade. So this is just a really strong sale for a fairly significant key for these characters: Aquaman, Green Arrow, Johnny Quick, and Superboy. So just a really great sale. I enjoyed that one. The next one is number 1. The biggest sale of the week was Superman 23. This is a book from July of 1943. It is a Nazi submarine cover. So it's basically, you're looking through the periscope. You see, the Nazis are like looking through the periscope and they see Superman swimming towards them. It's just classic wartime cover. As I said, these Superman Nazi-related covers are just really sought after by collectors. And this is just one of the ones that collectors really go after. This was a very strong sale. It's a Jack Burnley cover, and it was a strong sale for a restored copy. Now this was a 7.0 restored, and it's sold for $2,999.99. I just thought it was a great number. And the level of restoration on this book was very slight. There's a little bit of color touch, and it also has white pages, so it's a really great copy of this book. The previous record for this book, this is the first time it's sold in a 7.0, but there was two sales that were kind of similar grades. In a 6.5 restored, there was a sale in 2006 for $717. And then there was a restored 7.5 that sold in 2019 for $996. Now, this is a pretty strong sale because it's well, 3 times the 7.5 sale that was only a few years back. But also, one of the things that you can do is with restore grades, you can actually compare it to the blue labels. So when it's slight restoration, usually you can get about 60% of the value for the book. It's about 60% depending on the grade. Like if it's really high grade, it's more like 30%. If it's a slightly lower grade, you might get almost parity with the blue labels. The restoration really doesn't impact the value as much at the really low grades. Like a 0.5 universal versus a 0.5 restored, well, probably doesn't make much difference because it's incomplete copy anyways. So that's how this runs. Usually for a 7.0, you get about 60% of the value for a very slight what's called C1 or A1 restoration, where it's very slight and it's usually professional restoration. So this is what this book was. So normally you would expect, based on the blue label, like what did the blue label 7.0 sell for? Well, there was a universal 7.0 that had sold for $455 in September of 2021, and that was for a 7.0 universal grade. So normally we'd expect this book to sell for about $2,600, I should say, $2,600. But this book sold for $29.99, so it sold for about 67% instead of 60%. So it actually fairly close, fairly good price, about 10% higher than what you would expect this book to sell for. So that's a really strong sale for this book. As I said, it's about 3 times what the previous 7.5 restored grade had sold for. So this is a very strong sale, and that's why it's number 1 on the list. And it's a really good one to really get some sense of how restored grades work. Now, there's a really great feature that you can use on Go Collect. I actually recommend using Go Collect for certain things, where you can actually look at the sales history for restored copies. And it's just a really great thing where you can see how restored copies go up over time. And as I said, there's usually a very good way of estimating how much a book is worth based on looking at a percentage of the blue label. So as the blue labels go up, generally the restored books will go up as well. And that's what I've been trying to track it. And as I do more of these videos, I'm hoping that I'll see a bit more of a pattern where are restored copies performing as well as they had historically, or are they even performing better than they had previously performed in the past? It used to be that people would say that restored is the purple label of death. Well, is that so true? And I'm seeing a bit of a situation where restored copies are getting a little bit more love than they had in the past, and they're not being so negatively looked upon, and they're actually getting, some of the prices are pretty impressive for the restored books. There was actually 3 restored books on this list, and all of them performed fairly well for their grade. So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And stay tuned for next week, where I'll give you another list of the hottest books of the week. So thanks again for watching. Bye for now.